Hey y'all, welcome to another What Else is Going On, aka We Go podcast episode. I'm your girl, your host, Taria. Um, talking Atlanta. You know, I try to do a little something with Atlanta. I wanted to give y'all a little nasty shoulder, collarbone. You know, I love to give, a little chest action. All right, y'all, let's get into the episode. What is it? Episode 4 called The Vault. So we start out the episode with Angela and Britt. They meet up to exercise and talk. When I tell you, I said, come on, Angela, come on, body. Angela got a body, honey. I noticed that. I think it was last week. I said, okay. So they out there talking. Britt is pushing her dog in a stroller. And Angela seems like she's tall in real life. When I was looking at Britt, I was like, Britt looks like, and again, don't know these people. I never met these people. I don't know why I feel like um uh Brit it sorry, my text threw me off for a second. Um, I don't know why I feel like Brit could be my height. I'm 5'5", thick in the thighs, every thug's dream wife, see the love in their eyes. My age group knows who that's from, but that reference. But anyway, so I just assumed, I don't know, she's that height, but she could be even taller than that. But Angela just seems tall. When I saw her next to Brit and they both had on sneakers, I was like, oh, um, she seems tall. So Brit in her confessional said she wanted to get to know Angela because she typically doesn't have a lot of female friends. And when women meet her, they either love her or hate her. Basically, there's no in between. That was Danielle Staub's tagline, her first season of or second season. You either love me or hate me, but there's no in between. Um, so Britt starts. Angela. It was funny because Angela asked her, "How's her husband doing?" and something flew in Britt's mouth, and Britt was like, mouth open. I said, "Oh, is that foreshadowing?" Yo, I turned up. Child. I have an alarm set every night to say a prayer for my daughter. So if I'm ever on around 8 o'clock, it goes off, and I thought I had turned it off. But anyway, so when she had that mouth open, choking, I said, oh, the foreshadowing. Anyway, moving on. So Angela brings up that her relationship with her sister isn't really good. And she talks about how when you married, don't bring your issues to your family. We've all heard that because you take your issue, your argument, especially for something like really, really serious to your family, you forget, forgive, be all lovey dovey again. Your family don't forget. And now you looking at them crazy. I've been there with family and with friends. And now you didn't said all this stuff. So I've learned to just, I'm going to support the person. You like it. I don't have to love it, but I'm going to support you. You need a listening ear. Cool. Of course, if it starts to be over and over and over and you want my advice and you don't ever take it, then that's where we need to have a different conversation. But so so evidently Angela talked to her mom and sister about issues with Charles. Some stuff boiled over. They got to arguing about trash. She said, my mom felt comfortable sharing her opinion. They made up, but it still feels like it was yesterday to Charles. And then she says, and when you're taking care of them financially, a lot of it is coming from Charles. So I'm sure he probably feels some type of way. Here I am helping take care of your family, and they got all this to say. I'm just saying, I'm sure. And it was crazy that not crazy, that's the wrong word. But here Angela has issues with her sister, and we know that Britt also has issues with her sister. She talked about it either last week or the week before when they had that fancy dinner for I didn't review that when they had the fancy TV for dinner because the nephew gave it away. Lobster, this is fancy. But anyway, she talked to I think Michael's sister about her strained relationship with her sisters ever since her dad passed away. So there's that. So they do have that in common. Um, she, she in her confessional, Britt talks about how her and her two sisters were daddy's girls. Their dad was just simply sitting on the couch, minding his business, got a blood clot, and passed away. Like I was thinking, like we always talk about how life is short. Like life is truly, truly short. She said it's been hard for them to get back to a good place with each other. I've talked about it on this channel before. Sometimes people will use the life is short as a way to condone or try to guilt you into condoning toxic behavior from family members. Britt and her sister seemed like they were close, and they had a bump in the road. Their father passing away, and it seems like they both want to get back to a good place. We see that later in the episode. But I also feel like, because my first thought was, wow, life is so short when she said that. But also, don't let anybody guilt you into life is so short. Be okay with the toxicity that some of your family members can bring. No, life is short. But if you're at peace knowing you did everything you could and you're not bringing the toxicity, but you can't have it around you, that's fine too. So God forbid if something did happen to that person, there's no guilt for you to feel, right? Don't let the life is so short guilt you into continuing to be in a toxic environment. But like I said, it looks like Britt and her sister, judging by what we're going to see later, want to work it out. So they decide to go ahead and leave. Oh, and something, because I didn't review the week before last because I had 2 guests on. I wanted to address the insurance thing. And I know I saw that people talked about it on social media. Britt said she started her life insurance because her dad had a $2 million policy, but he was changing jobs and didn't have it when he passed. The insurance had to have been through his job, right? Either through his job that he was moving on from, or they didn't pay the monthly payment if it was a private life insurance and it was canceled. Because I know, God forbid, if something happened to me or Corey, if neither one of us had a job, we would still get the payout because we've been paying for it every month. So I was like, I'm surprised Britt wasn't paying it since she was a video vixen. Oh, that was in high school though. So she was out of high school when her dad passed away, but that was interesting. So anyway, they get to leaving and Angela's telling her about how she wants to get the girls together. She wants to invite everybody, even Shamia. She said in her confessional, look, she took her cheap shots. I took my cheap shots. I want to move on. That's what we want to see in Housewives. I liked how even I thought it was about me. Whatever way Kelly was saying it, I thought it was said a different way. Her event that she had at the store. I thought it was dope how Angela wanted to approach Shamia like, hey, I just want to approach you on I kind of want to make up for what happened, and Shamia was basically like, well, I want to meet Angela, not Angela's representative. And she didn't say it in a shady way. She was like, this is me. You are meeting Angela. And I'm glad that she was able to notice, hey, just how you were standing up for your friend, I'm doing that for mine with Drew. So we both in the same, position or whatever. So anyway, Angela's like, I want to invite Shamia too. I want to move forward. And I thought that was really good because that's what we want to see in Housewives. If they have conflict, we don't want to see the same conflict throughout this, like the entire season. We want to see some resolution. Okay. Child, Britt brings up how she has an issue with Kenya. Basically, she's been trying to give her a pass, but she gonna get in Kenya's behind if Kenya is out of pocket. I said, girl, please. I've said it before plenty of times that I haven't always been the biggest Kenya fan, but I do recognize, and I'm gonna keep saying it because it's true, what she brings to the franchise, her value. There are some housewives that you just, or people that you watch on reality TV that you're like, I would be okay if I never saw you again. And I used to feel that way about Kenya like seasons ago, but I stopped feeling that way about her about 2 or 3 seasons ago. But yeah, so anyway, I believe it was about 2 or 3 seasons ago. So this thing with Britt, I'm like, okay, I can see if Kenya was really trying to haze you like right out the gate, but it doesn't say, I don't get that. Right. So she said in her confessional, Britt says Kenya has a persona, her words, Kenya has a persona that could ruffle a couple of feathers. Who wouldn't have a preconceived notion with the personality like hers? You don't know her to know her personality. You know what you've seen on television as a viewer of the Housewives. So when she says she has a persona that could ruffle feathers, you ain't really experienced that. Yes, you've met her at the party and all of that, but you ain't really experienced that persona. So your preconceived notion does come from what you've seen on TV. And I get that. But I wish these ladies would come in like, you know what? I wish they broke the fourth wall to the point where I know what I've seen on TV. From what I've seen on TV, that ain't a person I would really want to know, but I'm here and I want to get to know them on my own. She's coming in like acting off of I feel like she's acting off of things she's seen in the past that Kenya may have had with other people, like issues, maybe hazing a little bit of other people, but she's not doing that with you. But your responses to her, your responses are to the Kenya that may have done that seasons ago with other people. She has not done that with you. Her and her preconceived notions are really wearing me thin. Anyway, we get to Shamia's house. She's outside on the lawn playing her song. I said, Shamia is going to make sure that song gets played over and over again. I don't blame you. Her sister Tamia comes over. Is it Tamia? I would think Tamia, right? Because Shamia and Tamia, maybe her mom was trying to do a thing. She plays her song. They start mowing the lawn, and her sister's like, why they got to do that now? Or Shamia or one of them's like, why they got to do that now? She mentions that she's going to a party that Angela's invited her to. And if she was Angela, she wouldn't have invited herself. And shout out to Shamia. She did a song with RL from Blackstreet. When I tell you, I love the Blackstreet album. I got it on my phone now. I loved Blackstreet. So she says she feels bad about going in on Angela's nose, but she's still making jokes in the confessional. But it was cute. But moving on, child, we get to Porsha's place of business, aka her WeWork space. And no, I'm kidding. But let me tell you something. Porsha got out the car. I said, come on. Porsha looked good from head to toe. Hair, face, body, clothes out. She really looked good. I said, okay, Porsha. So we get in there. We see Lauren, Porsha's assistant, and Lauren was also in Porsha's Family Matters. I think, isn't that a cousin on a different side or something like that? Lauren was there. Lauren, the assistant, not her sister, Johnny, the creative director / music executive, and her cousin Londi. And Londi is the one who unfortunately passed away last year. So RIP to Londi. She was also on Porsha's Family Matters. So she's basically having this meeting to talk about how she wants to take her brand to the next level, this business to the next level. She wants to do $1 billion business. Her sheets, pampered by Porsha, and the Go Naked hair. She talks about how she did it on this in her confessional. She was doing it on the side before, probably like passive income. She fell into the wife that became her identity. Now she's like, Sleeping Beauty, got to wake up. Soft life is over. I was looking at Porsha in that confessional, and I didn't say anything about it before, but I love a Black woman in red lipstick. Honestly, not even a Black woman. I love to see women in general, white, Black women of color. I love to see a woman. There's something about a woman wearing like her shade of red, because there's so many different beautiful shades of red. I love it. Porsha's red looks good on her. I don't like Kelly's entire look, outfit wise, but that red lip looks good on her. I love seeing a woman in a red lip. I just had to say that every time I see their confessionals, I'm like, child, let me go grab my red. That red looks good on them. But anyway, so she says now Pampered by Porsha and Go Naked hair needs to be the main meal to take care. That's what's going to take care of her family. Like I said, her plans were to retire at 40. She got to wake up. She wanted to do commercials and campaigns. She wants to treat it like a real business. She wants to be taken seriously in the business world. I said, okay. So she's also not going to have just sheets. She's going to have duvets and comforters and a luxury line. I have heard people say that, or seen people, not heard, but saw, like, on social media, people say that they like her sheets. I was like, maybe I will try them. So they get on the Go Naked hair. Johnny asked her if she's going to get more ambassadors. She said, yeah, but they got to be serious about their social media. What about their YouTube or podcast? Call me, Porsha. Don't make me call Porsha. Anyway, I can't do the lips. I love that when Nene does that. But uh, Johnny says Drew reached out to him because remember his title, he was described as the creative director and a music executive. So he says Drew reached out to him to see if he would sit down with her and Dennis to help them like push her music because he has ties in the music industry. I said, now, if that's the case, is that out of bounds? Is that out of pocket? Did Drew know Johnny outside of Porsha? Had she met him before or did she meet him through Porsha? What do y'all think? If she knew Johnny before Porsha or outside of Porsha, do you think it's an issue because Dennis is involved and she's saying, hey, will you meet with me and Dennis to kind of give us some insight, give us the inroads to the music scene? If she only knew Johnny through Porsha and called him, do you think that's wrong? Do you think that's an issue? Because I could see what she was trying to do if he did have a connection, again, with the music and all that. But then also it's like, Drew, are you purposely doing this so it can all be on film so that could give you your story, like you and Porsha kind of, I don't know. Again, I feel like in some cases we become distrustful of reality TV, right? Because we know how they like to set things up. Johnny said, since when did he become Quincy Jones? So in her confessional, Porsha says her main issue with Drew is her filming with Dennis. Then they flash back to her in that car telling Dennis, like, you film with her, you on camera with somebody else, it's going to be a problem. Well, child, I guess you're going to have a problem because. So, and I think that Drew ain't going to be an ambassador for Go Naked Hair much longer. Porsha says that Drew is not fulfilling some of her contract that she should be fulfilling and that she can't fire her, but HR, AKA Porsha, spelled differently. That was funny when they showed all the positions. Porsha had Go Naked Hair has, well, HR, attorneys, and they were all Porsha's name, but just spelled differently. So, Woocha, I think that Miss Drew may not be an ambassador much longer. Unless, again, this is just hype for the show. Moving on, we get to Ralph's home Drew's home / Ralph's basement. Ralph is outside playing sports with the kids. Their son plays football. And it was a cute little moment. Porsha comes outside. Drew comes outside. Now, I have a question, and I meant to go back and watch the scene before I did this review, but I forgot. So I'm going to ask y'all, are Drew and Ralph even allowed to talk to each other? I thought everything had to be done through the app. Because this conversation went on for quite a bit. So I don't know. I thought you know what? When Drew was talking about the app, maybe it was just me assuming that they could only talk through the app. But the daughter wants Drew to participate in the activity. She said, you got to ask daddy. Ralph allows her to run. So then the kids go in the house. Ralph and Drew talk. She says, that she likes how they're in a better place parenting. Now, was it just me? I said, is they still sleeping together? Because to me, ooh, child, my titty almost came out. I feel like there was a little bit of a chemistry. The way she was kind of smiley in her body language, and Ralph, the way he was looking at her. But I think Ralph is the type that's been told so much that he's good looking. So he kind of gives everybody that, like that, the squinty eyes and like the stance. Like he was looking at her as if he was attracted to her. And I wonder if that's just his way, like that he navigates in spaces with women, period. And if he knows, like whether he knows he's doing it or not, I don't know. But to me, there seemed like there was still some chemistry. Y'all let me know. Am I just seeing things? Because I saw it. But anyway, so, Ralph mentions Drew was sending him articles about being a narcissist. So in her confessional, the producer asked her if she's a narcissist. She has to look it up. Y'all remember when she looked it up, their first, was it their first or second season? When he said she didn't deserve steak, but a Lunchable. She had to look it up then. But anyway, But then there are some times when you know the meaning of a word, you can't articulate it, but you know what it is, right? I'm trying to give Drew a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Anyway, so Drew feels like their communication, like them communicating that way, is better than like what the judge set up. Ralph said, nah, he likes it. He likes what the judge put in place. Ralph is in a confessional with a blazer, no shirt, and a necklace. I said, is Kenya Moore right behind you? Get ready to get her confessional, because if Ralph is sitting in a confessional like somebody from a 90s R&B band, excuse, did they set him up in the basement? Wait, did they fly him to New York to do his confessional? Because don't the girls go to New York now to do their confessionals? Or maybe they go somewhere in Atlanta. I don't know, but I thought they went to. I know that they do them at a location. Did Ralph go, or did they go to the basement penthouse? Child. Anyway, Ralph mentions one of the kids brought. Oh, I'm sorry. The producer asked him why he came in without a shirt. He starts laughing. She wants to know if he's outside. He said, I'm inside with these kids. So Ralph mentions that one of the kids brought him an article about their divorce. And Drew says they talk about how it's been put in the order that they're not supposed to talk about the divorce with the kids. And she's glad, because she's not ready for that conversation anyway. They must really do a good job of shielding their kids from the show. Now, I know her two little ones, but the other Drew's son that Ralph like raises as his own is what? Like Josiah is like 10. So I just wonder, have any of these kids found out through friends or TV that their parents were splitting, when their parents try to hide it in plain sight, like on TV? So it's his weekend. Ralph says, well, it's your weekend. Let me get out of here. And Drew goes in to the house. I said, did Ralph just walk around the corner, or did he actually get in the car and leave? And I wondered, we know that during the week, Drew is upstairs, he's in the basement. Certain weekends, what, the first, third, and fifth weekend, Drew says she has to leave the house. So I wonder, does Ralph have the run of the house other than the basement? And then I wonder, on the other weekends, does he have to leave the house? And that's why he was walking towards his truck. We then get a tour of the lower level penthouse. It was cute. I said, oh, it's nice. Moving on, Kelly meets up with Kenya at Kenya's hair spa. The hair spa is gorgeous. It reflects Kenya Moore. Kenya Moore hair care. It looks really beautiful. Kelly came in with security, and Kenya was like, why do you have security? She says, well, you have an M-A-R-K. I have an M-A-R-K. So Kenya's like, wait, this security is because of your ex-husband, Mark? And Kelly says, yeah, he threatened me. And Kenya's like, do you have proof that he threatened you? She said, yeah, he threatened me in court. That's why he can't see the kids. Again, we talked about this last year when we found out who the wives were going to be. Stuff started coming out like always. And it really went in deep with Kelly's husband. It's scary. Who you marry is not who you divorce. And when it turns into you having to have security and looking over your shoulder, to me, that's like nothing worse. Infidelity, you can, okay, we're broken up. Financial infidelity, okay, we're divorced. But when you feel like your life is in jeopardy, like, I'm just praying for Kelly's peace, because it's one thing to get away from an ex that used to put his hands on you, but one that's threatening to unalive you in court, where there's judges, where there's a judge and lawyers. So shout out to Kelly. I hope that she has some peace in her life. And, you know, she talks about having security because her kids, her daughters need their mom. And I was like, wow. So Kelly says that they're fighting about the business. Kenya asked her, was the business yours? And she says, no, they had it together. They were married for 11. They had a business for 8. And she offered him during the divorce, hey, you can make the residual income from the restaurants. Let me just do my thing and run them like I've been doing. He would rather close it down. I said, to cut off your nose and spite your face. If the businesses are making money, you don't run it. I do. And I'm saying, hey, just get this check and let me do what I do. But you rather cut it, you rather shut it down. Like, that to me is like, really crazy and spiteful. Again, cutting off your nose to spite your face. So they're laughing and joking. And in her confessional, Kelly says she really likes Kenya. And she hasn't experienced with Kenya what Britt has experienced. That's because Britt has not experienced anything. But you know what? We say we don't invalidate another person's feelings or experiences. In my opinion, it doesn't look like Britt experienced anything with Kenya. But child, I'm looking at this camera. I look naked. I do have on clothes. The shirt is too big now. That's why. But anyway, she wishes that Britt could have the same experience with Kenya that she does. I do wonder, it was interesting to hear that. I think Kenya is one that called Britt over. Kenya doesn't typically do that to the newbies. So Kelly asked Kenya, does she plan a franchise? And she says, I want to, but look, I'm $400,000 in. And she's like, Kelly, can you give me, some advice? How do you get, basically how she get, Kelly was able to get customers in her spot. So how do I get customers in my spot? I get what Kenya is saying. And my first thought would be, oh, it's Kenya Moore. Just like with OLG, when it first opened and people thought they might see a candy or one of the aunties, or because it's owned by a celebrity, you go. That's food. So Kelly is selling food. If you don't like it, you don't go there again. It doesn't mess up anything on your insides or on your outsides. With hair, we as Black women know how we are about hair. When you find a stylist for your hair, you don't want to let that person go if they're good. You don't even want to cheat on the stylist, right? So I can see why that, because people are like, it's Kenya Moore. Why can't she get people in the chairs? But I do get to a degree how it might be difficult. You talk about somebody in your head. You don't know these stylists. And let's be clear, Kenya is not a stylist. She may come and do a little wash, but she's not a style. She's not a hairdresser. You know what I mean? A beautician. So I can see why people might be like, oh, I don't really want to cheat on my stylist. I can see how it could be a little bit difficult for her to get people in the seats. So, Kenya has a moment and she said, she gets scared, like, oh my gosh, I blew my daughter's college fund. And she breaks down. And I felt for Kenya, which is what makes what happened to her, or I won't say what happened to her, what makes her not being a part of the rest of the season. She probably took a financial hit because from what I understand, they get paid by episode. Now, look, if she's contracted for a certain amount of money, I wonder if they paid that out. Because I also heard that they get deposited. They they don't get it a lump sum. They split it out over the episodes, and every time an episode comes out, it gets deposited. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm gonna ask somebody if that's true. But I could understand. But and in that moment, she didn't know this. What was going to happen. She wasn't going to be in pretty much the rest of the season. You know what I mean? So as I'm looking at her, I was thinking about that. Like how must she feel now with the future of her and Housewives being uncertain? But I felt her in that moment, and I loved how Kelly comforted her and said, gave her a word and then gave her a hug and said, "We gonna get Brooklyn in college, to college." So I loved that. So shout out to Kelly. Britt meets up with one of her sisters. They sit down and they talk about their relationship with the mom. The sister has the mom blocked, and Kelly's like, "Look, I'm sorry." Britt is like, "You blocking is cutting off the communication. You can't do that." Britt says this sister particularly is having a really hard time with their dad passing. And the sister feels like, I miss my sister time. It can never just be her and Britt. It's got to be her, Britt, and Mike. That's how she feels. So Britt is like, look, I hear you. We need to communicate more. And then Mike is blowing up her phone in the middle of them having a discussion about her sister feeling a way that Mike always has to be involved. And then Britt says, I hear you. Don't let it, basically don't let it go this long again. I'm going to be here for you. But Mike is blowing up my phone. He wants me home. Are you serious? In the confessional, she said her sister isn't in a good relationship right now. So it's probably hard for her sister watching her be happy with Mike. Did y'all see? I felt like Britt and her sister kind of sounded a little bit alike. Britt is just a little bit more nasally, and it made me wonder. I don't remember seeing older pictures. Have I ever seen pictures of Britt before she got on the show? Like, we're going to talk about the fact that she probably had a nose job, right? But then her sister almost seemed like she almost had the same kind of nose, and they both almost sounded alike to me. Was it just me, or what did y'all think? All right, Drew goes into the studio with Dennis and a producer. They're going to work on the song. Drew was like, look, Dennis, hanging around with my crew, it's kind of awkward because me and you working together. You told me it was okay. Porsha said it was okay. I need you. Can you kind of step in and help a sister out? He gonna talk about you gotta facilitate it. Negro, that's what she asking you to do. Don't be dense for a day. Like, come on. So he says you need to facilitate it. And then he said, look, when we first started working together, Porsha was in Nigeria eating fufu. So he didn't have to let her know what he was doing. Then in her confessional, she said she's tried with Porsha to talk to her. I just got to, we all know Porsha, we got to be on her time. So it is what it is. Moving on. They all getting ready for Angela's event. Shamia calls Porsha on FaceTime. Shamia tells Porsha how beautiful she looks. Porsha said, you still like you getting ready. And then Shamia tells Porsha, I'm trying to come up with different ways to apologize to Angela. And Porsha is like, pretty much, girl, she invited you to the party. Don't worry about it. It is what it is. Britt calls Kelly. Kelly just getting her makeup done too. This to me was an important, an important conversation that I think is going to come into play later. I think I'm going to tell y'all why. So Britt is like, girl, I know you still coming, right? Then they talk about the area that it's in. It's in Bankhead, and they say it's the hood. So they're making it a point to point out that they think Bankhead is the hood. Kelly says she's bringing her security with her. She ain't playing no games. Then Kelly asked Britt, was Mike dropping her off? And Britt says, yeah, I don't feel safe because of the area, right? Fast forward. We back to Shamia and Porsha's conversation. Shamia's like, look, have you talked to Drew yet? Porsha's like, no, and it won't be tonight. We don't need to have a conversation where other people are there chiming in. You know, it's just what it is. They're going to have a fun night. So Angela arrives at the place. It looks it's called The Bank. It looks absolutely gorgeous. She was excited. It's a beautiful setup. The ladies were all supposed to wear black. This is where Kenya's, right? So all the ladies are coming in wearing black. Kenya comes in her blue. Now she did that teal looked really good on her skin, but I said, here we go. So Kenya says she didn't get the memo. In her confessional, Porsha was like, girl, it was on the invitation. It did say it on the invitation. I said, Kenya, stop. So when she comes in, she hugs Angela. She air kisses Drew. We don't see what she does to Porsha. And she actually makes contact with Britt's body. Again, Britt was sitting down. Had Britt got up, it probably would have been more of a full body. So Kenya has to bend down. She reaches her arm around her and pats her back. Now, I always tell my husband when he hugs me, don't pat my back. But in this moment, I found myself, I've even done that to people before. You hug them and you kind of, and you don't really mean anything by it. Britt says that wasn't a hug. But okay, Kenya said it was a hug without getting makeup on me. In her confessional, Britt is like, here we go. I've been trying to nice to you, but you give me this little pat says everything. I say, here we go. Britt. Shamia enters with her olive branch, gives it to Angela, and they have a conversation off to the side and they make up. And I thought that was real adult-like, and we love to see it. The olive branch, that was a cute idea. So they're joking about what's on the menu, the different kind of rolls. Porsha said they got peach cobbler rolls. Kenya said chitlin rolls. Porsha says, we in the South, everything is Southern because we in Bankhead, and they have a cute little moment. I love that. So Kelly mentioned off the bat, Drew brought extra guests to my event. I mean, you said you were bringing your sister, but it was Drew's makeup artist. I said, now let's rewind back. Last week at the event, Porsha said that it appeared to me that the makeup artist did Drew first, then was going to do Porsha, because she said Drew was going slow on purpose, so that by the time the makeup artist got to her, he couldn't do much. So I said, so then did he meet Drew at the event? Because if he did Drew first, did Porsha, and then ended up at the event walking in with Drew, I don't know. So anyway, so she said you brought someone with you, and Drew was like, that was my makeup artist. And she said he stayed and didn't buy anything. So Kenya, doing the work, says, so did everyone buy something? Kelly says, no. They said, who? She looks at Drew. Drew says, that's not true. Pulls up her phone and says she bought her son a blazer with a text message that she shows Kelly. It seems like you hear, did we hear a ding, or is that my mind saying that we heard a ding with a text message? Kelly says, I do see Dennis text you. And Drew is like, because Drew mentioned the group chat twice. When she shows the message to Kelly about her purchase, she says it was in a group chat. Unless they spliced that, because then when Kelly said Drew's texting you, she says, and you can see, I mean, when she says Dennis texts you, Drew says it's in a group chat. So I was like, so is she saying she was in a group chat with the person at Kelly's event and somebody else? But then also she's in a group chat with Dennis. I don't know. In her confessional, Kelly said, Drew ain't buy nothing. You show me a text message of you speaking with the sales associate, but you're not sending me a transaction. You still didn't purchase anything. You're drinking champagne, eating hors d'oeuvres, and not buying anything. Clearly, she's not used to being in these rooms, supporting a cause. Do better. I said, oh, baby. It almost seems like they kind of coming for Drew a little bit. I don't know. But then it also feels like does Drew kind of like it? Like I am the center, in a weird way. Some people like that. I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Angela gives the floor to Shamia, says, hey, tell me what's going on in your life. Shamia plays a snippet of her song plays their song. Let me take a drink because I'm going to tell y'all. Take one more sip. I don't want to be irrational, but not for some reason, when I tell you this scene, I was so pissed with Porsha. Before the season started, and even now, people are saying, Porsha is jealous of Shamia. She's a hater. I don't always like to use the word jealous or hater because it doesn't always apply. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'll never forget. Somebody on Twitter said, everybody isn't hating on you. Some people just don't like you. Like, it's not like I can not like you. I just don't care for you. I don't fool with you. That don't mean I'm hating on you. Because hating is a different level, right? So you don't want to think, even if a friend wants all the shine, I want the shine. You don't want to think that even though I want all the shine in our friendship, I'm hating, like going out of my way to kind of throw salt on what you're doing. And I know for me, if I'm in a conversation with you, we're talking about something serious, or you want me to tell you something, so I'm trying to tell you. And then you're like, oh, but wait, and like say a joke or whatever, like try to make a joke about something. They're like, okay, go ahead. It kind of just throws me off and it irritates me. Ooh, okay. So Shamia is playing the song. Is that true? That was like, okay. Because I will say it did in that song did seem like Shamia and Drew had a similar sound. Instead of her waiting till it was over or saying, oh my God, girl, I thought that was Drew at first because y'all both sound so good, and then just shutting it down. She says, is that Drew? She said, And Shamia's like, me. That's me. And when she says, oh, I don't know your voice, as if Shamia don't know her own voice, as if Shamia don't would sit on a platform and play a snippet of Drew's song. Are you serious right now? So when she said, is that Drew? I was like, okay, that's weird. But when she said, oh, so I don't know your voice, as if Shamia doesn't know her own, but y'all, this is what really took me over. When she said, after it was over, were you on the song? Or no, I'm sorry, were you on it? Girl, I told you it was me twice. I even started singing a little bit of it. And you gonna say, were you on it? That's not funny. It's not cute. It almost reminded me of when some seasons back, remember when they all went to the wine country? I think Nene was back. I don't know if she was back as a friend of, or if it was, remember when she left, then came back one season, sort of like a friend when her and Greg had just got back together, and then she came on the next season full time. It reminded me of when they were in that wine country and they went up. Didn't they eat dinner in the air or something? And Kenya, Porsha, Cynthia was talking about either her wine cellar or the wine or something. And Kenya kept like kind of coming at her. And Cynthia felt like, you're trying to tear down my brand. And like in front of people, why would you do that? It gave me the feeling what Porsha was doing to Shamia gave me that feeling of that. But this was even worse because you sang in groups with her. And Shamia did, before Shamia introduced her music, she did something that people that know their friends are insecure, like they're good at something that their friend is insecure about. She does something that showed me that. When she talked about her, when Angela gave her the floor and she talked about her singing, she made sure she mentioned Porsha. She said, I've always loved singing. Porsha and I used to sing and look, maybe she didn't do it because now that I'm thinking about it, because Porsha was insecure, because I may do that too. Like I've been singing my whole life. Me and Porsha used to sing, but it gave me that, especially Porsha's reaction when as Shamia was playing her song. You know what I mean? Like to make sure she included her. But anyway, you knew it was Shamia singing and then got in the confessional and the ladies knew that Porsha was being a hater. And then Porsha gonna say, no, I thought it was Drew because it sounded good. Y'all, it was really ignorant. That's what it was. It was genuinely ignorant. She genuinely thought it was Drew. After, okay, the first time, but she told you it's me. Then you say, I don't know your voice. Then you're saying, were you on it? And trying to do it in that voice, were you on it? Y'all, when I tell y'all that sent me over the edge. So then they play a game. They write down anonymous questions for somebody. They read them out loud. Angela says, Shamia, will you do me the honors? I said, oh, she was really leaning on Shamia. Like, I want you to know, like, for real, we made up. So she said, Shamia, will you do me the honors? So the first one was, Shamia, what did you do for Gerald the night he got you the car? She does a little demonstration. When she later, I said, oh, she must have teabagged, took it down, and then threw it around in a circle. Okay. Then the next one was Angela. Porsha read one to Angela. What's the secret that you wouldn't want the group to know? Angela said, I'm pretty much open book. Porsha says, have you ever had a threesome? She says, no, I don't bring other people into my marriage. Kenyon says, that's good. Porsha says, I've heard Charles is spicy. I've heard some stuff about Charles. They all ask her what, and Angela's like, what have you heard about my husband? She's like, oh, we'll save that for later. No, when I tell you, I don't like stuff like that. Because I would have been like, well, what level spicy? Like spicy, like you sleeping with a person that you said was your friend and went out with their ex, or bolo spicy? Somebody gonna eat me tonight spicy? Like what scale? Asking for a friend. Okay. And I don't dislike Porsha saying all this, but she irritated the mess out of me through this episode. Like, well, at this dinner specifically, because I don't do that. Say it. Say their name or leave it on the playground. So in the confessional, Angela calls her a stupid B. The producer said, what? She said nothing. They get to Kenya. Kelly asked Kenya what panties she has on. And I got the impression maybe she didn't have any on. Either that or they look like a thong from the front, because the way Porsha was talking was like they saw her lips. She was like, Kenya got a moose knuckle. So I was like, maybe she didn't have any drawers on and she showed them. So they laughing. Next question was for Kenya. Second question for Kenya. Drew read it. Why are you so worried about happily married woman? Britt says, women. I said, did she write that question? Kenya said, it's a habit. Child, I tell you, I cracked up. Kelly said, for real? A habit? And Kenya's like, no, I'm joking. The third question directed at Kenya. Kenya said, I'm popular tonight. Britt says, can you speak to Britt kindly and not with an attitude? And then she says, I didn't write it. Kenya says, I can speak to everyone kindly. Britt's like, we're not talking about everybody. We're talking about me, sweetheart. You know, when somebody hits you with a sweetheart, it can be like, oh, you trying to be smart. So Britt says, we're talking about me, sweetheart. Britt kept going. Kenya was like, oh, okay, you're having your moment. Okay, this is a big moment for you. We all, as fans, know what that means. You coming at the big dog, or OG, Yvette. You want me to give you a back and forth. Because remember Marlo's first season as a housewife at her event at Le Archive? She was trying to have a moment with Kenya and Kenya wouldn't give it to her. And then Kenya walked off and she got mad. And I'll never forget, Carlos King even talked about, now, this doesn't make it gospel, but I do remember him talking about that on the Housewives. Like when he was on the Housewives, if you can get a moment like that at your event, and especially with like an OG type event, it's a big deal. So Kenya was like, oh, you're having your moment. It's a big moment for you. Britt says, no, you're having a moment. Do you need to step out? Kenya said, for her wine glass, I am the moment. I'm not going to lie. I was living. I said, she's sitting there looking all beautiful. She said, I am the moment. Calm. Because by now, again, Kenya's a vet. All the vets know the game. I'm not going to give you what you're looking for. You want it with me. I'm not going to give it to you. Child, when I tell you, Kenya said, I am the moment. And then Kenya said, I can speak kindly to everyone. Britt's like, this is not about everyone. Kenya said, okay, I'm not playing these childish games. A peasant cannot come for a queen. When I tell you, that sent Britt into outer space. And I get it. You don't want to be called a peasant, right? Although some people don't mind being called a peasant. Hey, Ariane Curry. Wait, is her last name Curry? Am I thinking of the basketball player Steph Curry? But hey, Ariane from Love and Marriage Huntsville, when Martell called her a peasant. Those of you that watch the show get it. But that sent Britt into outer space. It set her off. They end up ending the night because Britt is going on and on. FUB, like she literally said that. Kenya's like, all right, I'm going home. Angela's like, yep. Because at first Angela was like, there's olive oil, like extend the olive branch. The ladies are leaving and Britt is going off and they're not paying attention to her. It'd be one thing if all the ladies were sitting there and they were having this back and forth. Britt would be getting her moment. The ladies have decided, yeah, the night's over and got up and everybody's talking. So now Britt doesn't have her moment. And that probably wasn't done on purpose, but I imagine her feeling like, oh, I know they not. Right. So yeah, Britt is like, get the F out of here, B. Some people be trying the wrong mother effing ones. They be looking for their moment. She's saying this as they're all leaving. Kenya was paying her she wasn't getting under Kenya's skin. So in the confessional, all the ladies are saying Britt is doing too much. So Angela gives them their beautiful boxes. They're walking out. Britt is like, where is my husband? Let me call my husband that cares about me. That's supposed to be a shot at Kenya. We know that. So then she says, let me call him and I need to be aware of my surroundings. I feel like in that moment, she was again talking about it being Bankhead. Because remember, when her and Kelly were FaceTiming before, they were both like, it's in Bankhead. Kelly's like, I don't play that. I'm bringing security. Britt is like, I don't feel safe. Kelly's like, is Mike dropping you off? She's like, yeah, I don't feel safe because it's Bankhead. So she's like, I need to be aware of my surroundings. I do feel like in that particular moment, she was talking about the area. Like there must have, I think maybe it carried over and maybe we just didn't hear some of it. Kenya is going out and calls Porsha over. I said, I know that's like calling her over. And Britt is saying a moment. And Drew is like, oh, it's the catch the moment. It's a vibe, catch the moment. By this time, Kenya and Porsha are outside. And I think and Shamia is on her way out. Britt is still talking. She calls her husband. She says, where's my husband? And she's calling her husband. Kelly's like, you want me to check and see if he's outside? Britt says, I still got my pistol. Mind you, when she's calling her husband, because she has the phone in her ear, so it must be ringing. She's like, where's my husband? Babe, where are you? Right. He comes walking up. They go walk out. He's like, you all right? And she's like, yeah, and just going off about Kenya. They get outside. Kenya's out there with Porsha. And Kenya's like, I don't think my car's here. She starts going. She's getting even more and more. Now it's a big scene. Producers are outside. They're showing the cameras. Everybody's outside, right? Kelly said, let me call security. No, Kelly goes, security. In the meantime, oh no, that's what it was. Before they went outside, as Britt is on the phone, clearly it's already dialed. She says, somebody find my husband. Babe, where are you? I'm like, was he on the phone already? Like, or did it just happen so quick? Anyway, he walks up, they go outside. She says, I had to let her be. When he says, are you okay? She was like, I had to let her be. No, don't play with me like that. Britt says, everything's cool. Everything's good. Kenya and her ditzy ad. She be playing that in front of the cameras. I don't play. You can play that in front of the cameras. I don't play them games. I don't play them games. I got whips and pistols and everything. I have a feeling next week she gonna say she was talking about the surrounding that she was in. That first time she mentioned the pistol, that first time, I could maybe be like, okay, we didn't hear the conversation before that. Because Kelly says, all we heard is Kelly said, you want me to try to find your husband? And she says, no, I have my pistol. So one could possibly think, okay, maybe she's talking about her surroundings. But then to say that as she's going outside, unless they cut another part of the conversation that we didn't hear about them feeling like they were in danger. My question is, even if you were talking about your surroundings and you have pistols and whips, you bringing whips to a fight? So like if she tries to go that route, like I was talking about protecting myself, my safety, you would bring a whip to a fight? Like nobody's on a cross like Jesus. So why would you bring a whip? Now I want to get into something. I want to read something. Because, hold on, y'all. I wanted this, I meant to have it pulled up beforehand. Because remember, Britt, hold on. Darn it. I wanted to read exactly what Britt said on social media. Remember when all the news came out about what Kenya did, and Kenya was like, I felt threatened, and then it came out, oh, Britt threatened her with a pow pow. So I thought Britt Edie says she did not threaten Kenya. Hold on. Because she was like, she didn't own a GUN and all of that. She said all of that. I think I might have it. Okay, hold on. Okay, she said when all this came out last year, it's never a good feeling being targeted or hazed by someone I thought would embrace me into a new circle that I never met. For the record, I never once had possession of any weapons or threatened anyone. I never even been to jail in a fight or even had as much as a speeding ticket. That's not in my character. I'm hurt by the narrative that's being displayed. What's wrong is wrong. I wonder if we're going to try a game of semantics here, because her words were, For the record, I've never once had possession of any. Oh, well, she can't say. She said, I've never once had possession of any weapons. Okay, well, she said I still got my pistol. So that's a lie. And then she says, I never threatened anyone. If she says, I never said I was going to pal you, Kenya. Yes, you never said that. We can say that. Yeah, you never said that. However, if I get into an argument with you or have a little bit of a word altercation with you, and then the next thing you know, you're like, I'm cool. I got my pistol. Why would that even be a part of the conversation? If it was, it may not have been a direct threat, but it was an indirect threat for sure. Because when we flash forward at the end of the episode to next week, she's sitting with Shamia and she says, you might, Brittany's like a Brit. Is her real name Brittany? Is it Brittany Edie? I don't know. But she says, to Shamia, I don't want Kenya to feel like I threatened her or whatever. I wonder if she's going to say she was talking about her surroundings. But even if she was, let's just say she was, even if it came out that production cut a piece of her saying I have whips and pistols because of my surroundings, even if so, you got on social media last year and said you never were in possession of a weapon. But on the show, you said you had it. So either way, you still lied. Cha. So her husband is like, where's your mic? And she says, take it off me. You know, she's performing, right? She performing. She running off at the mouth. Kelly gave her a hug. Mike tells her, you're doing too much. Oh, but she gonna learn. She gonna learn today. Oh, let me go back though. At the table, did I mention when she was going off and she says did I mention that? She says I didn't send for her. And Kenya says, thank you for using my catchphrase. I know that fired Britt up even more because that's like embarrassing. Right? Like here I am quoting you in an argument to you. Like, and you're pretty much carrying me like, thank you for using one of my catchphrases. She was fired up. So her husband tells her she's doing too much. Ends up getting in the car with Porsha. That was a cute moment. Porsha thought Kenya said there were dirty thongs back there, but I think it was tongs. So then we hear audio and Kenya brings up, Britt mentioning a pow pow, and Portia's like, a pow pow? What? So Kenya's like, she gotta go. She gotta go. Like talking like that. She gotta go. Like basically, that's not cool. She can't be here. She gotta go. So then Kenya says, oh, there's Charles is here. Oh, I'm gonna stay away from Charles. I don't want no trouble with Angela. And she laughs and then it goes off. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about this episode. Let me know what y'all thought about the Britt and Kenya of it all. Do y'all think Britt was looking for her moment from Kenya? And Kenya paying her dust just set her on fire? Let me know what y'all think about Porsha and Shamia playing her song and Portia's reactions. That was pretty much the bulk of the episode. Oh, the scene with Kelly and Kenya. Really loved that scene. And are y'all buying some Go Naked hair and some Pampered by Porsha sheets? I'll talk to y'all later. See ya. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Love y'all.